Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special episode of Shorts in Focus where we show short films love. We are proud to give an audience to independent and student filmmakers to come on the show, to show their work, to have it be seen by a national audience, and this is a movement. This is a movement, and we are so glad that you are part of it. This is a special episode. It's our first pre-produced episode. I'm here with my co-host,
Matt Cipollone.
and our guest for the day. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Jacqueline Rogers, independent filmmaker. The film that we're going to watch is actually, or clips from it, is my thesis film from graduate school. Mm-hmm. So I did a one-year graduate school up in Connecticut at Sacred Heart University, and the program was called, it's their Sacred Heart University, and it was their film and television master's program.
Okay. And so this, what we're seeing, will be your thesis film.
Yeah, it's my thesis film that I made actually, it was like a year ago last summer, like literally to this day.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So this is symbolic.
Yeah, it is.
You know? Yeah, definitely. Can you tell us the name of your film and tell us a little bit about it?
So the short film is called Kelly. My friends and I always joke around about how it's literally a short film. It's about like 4 minutes and 58 seconds runtime. And it's about a young girl who comes to terms with her life in foster care.
Okay. That's a pretty deep.
It is. It's really deep.
It's a pretty deep topic.
Yeah.
What's your inspiration for that?
So I'm very big. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, kind of assume that I was adopted, but I wasn't. But I've had friends throughout my life who have been adopted. Most of my friends have been overseas. But I'm just very big on what I call found families, because your friends are the people or your family that you get to choose. So I kind of wanted to explore that, and a lot of my inspirations that I drew from that were, I'm a huge fan of the show The Fosters, which is it was ABC Family, and they just switched to Freeform, and it's absolutely great. And it also deals with foster care and the foster system. Okay. Another huge inspiration was a Disney movie called Meet the Robinsons, which again deals with adoption. And I pulled a lot of stuff from, or I guess not a lot of my ideas, but that I think had more impact on a lot of things. And then there's this really great father-daughter relationship on one of my other favorite shows, and there's a little influence on that too. So,
is this the first time I'm actually addressing this topic in general?
That I am?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, and like I said, I think it's just there's something interesting about two people kind of coming together and finding each other, and I think the media doesn't really talk a lot about or have a lot of positive relationships with parents, and that's kind of what I wanted to explore a little bit. Whether it's like a mother-daughter relationship or if it's like a father-daughter relationship, and that was something that I wanted to explore a little bit.
Mother-daughter relationships, and mother-daughter, father-daughter. I mean, relationships with kids and parents can be complicated in general. But when you throw adoption into the mix, that can take it to another level. I mean, Matt and I sort of have some personal experience with this. You want to talk about how you're connected to it?
Well, right before I met Cain, before we both met each other at grad school, in our film program, I was working with an organization called Kids Insight that works with teenagers in foster care and progressive systems that work to really give teenagers, who we'll talk about later in terms of the likelihood of being adopted or being longer in foster care, a larger voice at the table, so they can more directly impact the decisions that affect where they live and how long they'll be at place to place, which are also issues that you addressed that we're looking forward to talking to you about.
And so Matt and I, met in our master's program at AU in film, and he's probably one of the first people, if not the first person that I met and befriended. And we were talking. He was talking about the work that he had done. And I fade in the background sometimes. Sometimes I downplay stuff. So he was just talking about it one day, and I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. I'm adopted, so I kind of get in. And he was like, whoa, what? So yeah, I am adopted, and so which is why this
hit home for you.
Right, this project definitely hit home. I was adopted when I was 1.5 years.
Okay.
I know that I was in the foster care system. I don't remember it at all.
Okay.
What I know about it, I learned from like case notes that I read about myself. But I, you know, was adopted when I was a year and a half, and so, you know, this is an experience that I've lived. Right. So, you know, seeing the film is definitely like, okay, yeah, this, you know, I get this.
Yeah.
I hear that it's a very different experience for youth and adolescents and teenagers, because once you get to the point of sort of being cognizant of the fact that, you know, you're not living with your parents,
Right.
you know, it becomes a completely different thing. But again, just knowing that is my background made this film really really special. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. It's interesting because I know there are about like, since 2014, there have been over 400,000 kids in foster care, and like I said, I really wanted to touch upon that. I did, you know, a lot of research, like so much research. Like I went which was weird to me because like there's online services where, I mean, you have your people where people, well, the fosters just briefly touched upon it, where like for-profit foster care, but which is mildly ridiculous, but that's a whole different topic. But like I went online and it was kind of like, you know, when you go online to search for a pet, they have the same thing for children.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? It was in my head, it was just nuts. And like when I was doing research, I was like looking at a lot of the faces, and I was reading a lot of case studies, and I was reading just like as much as I could. And like I was trying to find, you know, like films, like I watch a lot of documentaries, which again, there was a lot of talk about international adoption and not necessarily domestic. And that's, I think, why I kind of went the domestic route than international.
So my parents actually told me this story, that when they first decided that they wanted to adopt, they went into the office, and once they were cleared and everything, they literally handed them this like huge black book that was full of pictures.
Oh wow!
And it was just like, you know, flip through the pictures. So like it's always been you know, kind of amazing to me that like how did you land on? And I've asked you, how did you land on my pictures? I was like, you know, man, it's just, you know, they were like, it's something about your eyes. But yeah, so clearly this is really personal. I think we should go ahead and get into the film so we can talk more about it. So let's watch this clip, and you know, we'll talk more when we come back.
Awesome.
Hi, Darcy.
I'm not sure why kids like these things.
It's the spinning.
Oh, that's it.
Some little kid thought it'd be funny to push me around, and I got caught in it.
You know, you can finally unpack now.
Mr. Hargrove, the Durs, Mrs. Schaefer, the Rubinos, Mr. and Mrs. Kate. They all brought me back.
Kelly, the adoption is going through.
Kelly's a teenager in this film,
Yeah.
and statistics show that teenagers are less likely to get adopted as compared with babies and young children. My cousins, I have 3 adopted cousins, they were all adopted very young. And I've met lots of teenagers who are still waiting for that adoption to go through. So what was your decision for picking Kelly's age in this film?
That was something that I wanted to touch on a little bit, just because like with a lot of the research that I did do, I found that the older kids were not the ones that were going to get adopted. Like they get adopted, like statistics show that like they very rarely get adopted. I mean, and I think that even starts at like age 7 or 8, and that's really not that old if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So I think it was really important to who Kelly was and to kind of show that like, because when you think adoption, like even with people that I know who have, you know, adopted young ones, have all been through infancy. And like these older kids are also just as important too. And they're the one, also sometimes are some of the ones that have been there through infancy or have been there for maybe like 3 or 4 years, and then they're there until they age out.
You know, I really, really liked how you captured Kelly's confusion, angst, whatever you want to call it, with the spinning, right, on the carousel, and how you kept cutting back and forth between the spinning and the car rides. You know, you had the spinning movement and then also the movement behind in the car. Where did you get that idea?
I wanted to have a visual symbol of that feeling of never being able to settle down, or like that feeling of like angst and annoyance and just like everything that she was emotionally feeling at that moment. And I was just like racking my brain, and then I thought of like a carousel, and then I came on. It was funny though, because everybody was like, I wrote in the script, it was like merry-go-round, and they're like, and literally people thought ones of like the theme parks, and which was originally in my head, but I was like, no, the ones that are on a playground, like, because they have which are supposedly a little dangerous, but whatever. But it's this big emotional thing with her, and it really is that visual image, and to the, like, I think it's a great visual image for the audience of, you really get that feeling of what she's feeling in that moment, and that progression of, you know, when we were with Corey, who's the one on the carousel, and we were going through, all right, like different scenarios, and just trying to do the progression, so we had everything.
What are some of the actual filmmaking techniques, though, to keep that sense of continuous motion that you're referring to?
Right. So I guess, like, I mean, talent-wise, what we were doing is both actresses, we would give like a scenario. Pete, my cinematographer, who is great, he was working a lot with the talent on that moment, just because we had a very tiny space, and it was just like scenarios of, okay, like you just broke up with a boyfriend, and not necessarily, it didn't necessarily have to pertain to that film, but it was just like some scenarios of where they could emotionally go to those places. So we did that with little Kelly, and we also did that with older Kelly as well.
So for those who don't know, Pete is Peter Zeke Dowdy, who is the co-executive producer on this show. He did the cinematography for this film. So if you liked what you saw, that's who's behind the scenes here, making Shorts in Focus run. So shout out to Zeke, or Pete.
Pete.
He's got like 18 names.
Yeah. He's great.
And another question from this scene specifically, the backpack. That was very symbolic as well. What was your reasoning for picking the backpack as such a symbolic object in this film?
So when I was doing, again, like a lot of my research with kids in foster care, most of the time they really only had the clothes on their backs, which like just boggled my mind. And then on top of that, if they did have time to go and grab stuff, they were handed a black garbage bag. And they had about like 5 minutes to clear their stuff out. And in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, what if she was given one item, whether it was passed down from like a foster sibling or maybe a little bit better of a foster parents, like what would that item be? And for me, I think it was a backpack. And this one works so perfectly just because it's drawn on, and there's a lot of the backpack itself is, you bring it into the film as a character, because like it starts out, you know, very stuffed and everything, and it's with her through her whole journey, and then by the end of it, which we'll see later, and she starts unpacking.
And where did you find that backpack?
I found that backpack on eBay, and it was great.
I missed the backpack the first time I watched it. I think I was so caught up with the movement, because we were cutting from the movement on the carousel or merry-go-round, or, you know, things on the playgrounds have names,
Right.
tons of names. But we were cutting from that movement to the movement in the car.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I watched it the second time that I was like, it's the same backpack.
It is the same backpack.
You know, and
yeah.
again, that's like the symbolism really hit there.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like, okay, you get the movement, and a lot of times you watch something the first time, and you know, everything doesn't click the
Right.
first time you watch
Right.
something. But realizing that she was taking this exact same bag from house to house to house for all of these years, that really, you know, that really hit home. You know, that was a really powerful moment. And then the viewers with the movement, I feel like it sort of kept your audience tense. Were you going for that?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that spinning in general does, like, you get so you get nauseous, and that's definitely, you know, a feeling that we were wanting to get through. And with the flashbacks in general, we never really wanted to ever settle. I think in one of the car ones, either a little bit later on, where I think the door doesn't necessarily slam all the way or doesn't shut all the way, and so right before the door closes, we're already onto the next shot. So it's like that progression of her going from house to house to house, where she's never able to settle down. Like, she feel like she's not at home at all, and it's just like this frustrated feeling that you get. And the backpack is great, and I really wanted to bring that home. I think it brings it home a lot more, and it's kind of like its own little character.
And that really contributed to the mood, like you said, but
Yeah.
stepping back and thinking about how you talk to your crew and your strategies behind, you know, the general tone and mood, not just the pace. Walk us through, for people that might have not ever made a film before, what are some of the steps you take deliberately to create a really consistent mood throughout a short piece like this?
So what Pete and I did, which we went over, and we kind of went over what, like, the day's events of what we were shooting and everything. And my assistant director, who's a good friend of mine, Ashley, she like controlled set so great. Like, I barely knew, as a director, you want to know what's going on set, but like, it also she let me really focus in on the story a lot. And it was just always an open dialogue. And that first day, Ashley, Pete, and I would just have constant conversations about, like, okay, well, this is not working. What can we do? Let's, you know, can we keep moving on? Do we have everything? I think we stepped away several times on the first day because it's the first day, and just always had that conversation. And I think having those conversations is important, of being able to, like, step away for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is, be like, okay, like, what's working, what's not working, when can we move on?
Sounds like you had a great relationship with your crew then.
Yeah, we did, and I was very lucky. Ashley was absolutely fantastic. She like nailed that, and she's great. And then Kevin was the AC, and he was great. Ben was a PA, and Ben was just like running around and doing everything that we could. We also had, in one of the older shots, we had like pictures. So like later in the day, we had little Kelly there. So he was like the one actually doing the photography when we were doing other stuff. Okay. So that was great. I'm trying to think of else who was there. Sarah was there. Sarah was great. She did some great. She did some grip work, some PA work too, and she was absolutely fantastic. I know I'm probably missing people.
They'll never forgive you.
Right. Never.
Yeah, they'll never forgive me.
Tell them charge it to your head and not your heart. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It happens sometimes. What I have been noticing, though, that you were very specific in your directing, because you're shouting out everybody else. And I got to say, this film was wonderfully directed. So
thank
again,
you.
like, you did a wonderful job. And I've noticed that as you've been talking about your characters, that you really allowed them to sort of find the character on their own. There wasn't a lot of dictation. It didn't know, you know, Kelly's like this and she's feeling this, that you established more of a dialogue between you as the director and the talent, and sort of let that relationship drive, or the dialogue drive their performance. How did you get to do that? Like, why weren't you like, Kelly is supposed to do X, Y, and Z?
I mean, you get more of a naturalistic and genuine performance, or at least I feel like, when you have that open dialogue with your talent. And like, not only was my talent asking questions, like, I think when I was working with Corey, who plays older Kelly, like, I had her kind of like, all right, how does she think and how does she feel? And at one point, like, I gave her a feeling, and then we were both like, well, this isn't really working, so let's bring it back to what you were previously doing. And then like Corey just nailed it. So, but yeah, no, I think that dialogue is important to have. I mean, you're not stepping away; you're still there because I think it's also important to ask questions because then at that point, you're asking the correct questions and you're getting those emotional aspects out of your talent.
Right, right.
It seems like you're really more of a collaborator than a lot
Yeah.
of stories we've heard about what it's like to work on a set of a fiction film.
Yeah. That's what, I don't know. I always loved collaborating and working with people and working with others. And I think it makes set can be such a negative thing. And it just makes set such a more positive, open place to be in, a happy place. Because sometimes it's not necessarily happy because there's drama and it's like sometimes so tense. And it's just like, at least I like to think that my set was a little bit more laid back. Everybody did like a fantastic job to really keep and run set and just kept it like a well-oiled working machine.
Yeah, you hear about different people's directorial styles, and then, some people, especially in Hollywood, when you have a movie with a certain director, I've heard certain actors on interviews know, okay, I'm going in this. I know that he's a taskmaster. I know that it's going to be, hard days. Like I know this going in, but he's a great filmmaker. So, I'm willing to put that in. And it seems like people, directors specifically really have their own styles as to, how they approach the art of filmmaking. What would you say your directorial style is?
I don't know. Like sometimes I feel weird even calling myself an artist, just because I feel like I haven't gotten to that point. I don't know. It's really complicated for me, but I don't know. I pull a lot from I watch a lot of television and I do watch a lot of film, and I pulled a lot from television and like a lot of my different directors, and just like looking at what they're doing and going through like the stuff that they've done. I also follow like a lot of female directors and what they like go back, and even if it didn't necessarily pertain to my topic, so like I went back and watched like some stuff that Ava DuVernay did and stuff that Lexi Alexander did, and some of the stuff. I actually also look up to his name is Joshua Caldwell, and the day before, I follow him on Twitter, and he's like really talented and really great. And the day before I started, or that morning that I started, I had tweeted out to him, and I was like, do you have any advice for me? I'm going in for like my first short film, and it's my thesis film, and like he sent me back a block of text messages.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was really, it was like, it meant like a lot to me. And like, I think I screen capped them, and I know I have them somewhere on my computer, and like, I just need to print them out because it was really great advice because he talked about, I think, working with your talent, and then just like working with other people on set, and like how directing, how directors sometimes can go off a little offbeat, and just like bringing it back to set and bringing back to your characters.
Sounds like it gave you some really,
really
great advice.
It was really cool.
Because I think we're really excited to get into the second clip. Let's roll the second clip.
Kelly's been through more foster homes than I have. She'll always be afraid that people will leave her. She'll always be looking for answers. How are you feeling?
Nauseous. Did you ever find your family?
Your grandparents.
It's not what I meant.
I looked for a while.
And?
No. I stopped looking. I already had the answers. I didn't need that information. I already had one crazy older brother and two wonderful parents.
All right, so we are introduced to the aunt.
Yeah.
And we were just talking, as the clip was playing, about how she really stood out as a character and as an actress. Talk a little bit about, not only her character and her importance to Kelly, but just a little bit about her as an actress.
Well, Sally is great. And I remember her audition very well. Like, my friend and I were auditioning in New York City, in this little studio. And she just came in and she like had a little bit of, I don't know, like she added so much more character than everybody that prior to that I kind of saw was like flat, and she just kind of read it completely differently and a little bit different than what I had imagined, and I was just like, in my head automatically I was like, yes, that's her, I want her. And she kind of just blew me away in the audition, and I really wanted to bring her on as that role, and she did a fantastic job. And then her relationship with Kelly is that I think this is Kelly's first time of really meeting someone else, and someone else who's older that's kind of been through a similar situation than her, and give Kelly some of her, like, be a positive role model. Like, she's had such a negative view of the world, and then, there's her relationship with her aunt, and then, like, give Kelly, she kind of gives her some agency back into her character.
Now, were you casting for a black woman in that role, or did you just leave it open? We kept it open. Something, I really wanted to bring in a lot of, try to bring in a lot more diversity. And she, like I said, she was the best one for the role, and she blew me away, and I was like, yes, I want her.
It was really authentic.
Yeah, no, she was.
As soon as she started speaking, it
Yeah.
was very genuine.
Yeah, and no, totally. And I feel like she reaches out to her, and that was definitely something that I was looking.
Now that we've seen two clips,
Right.
taking a step back and taking a larger look at your approach to this, are there any specific broader policy issues in relation to adoption and foster care that you were really looking to speak to the audience about?
Not really. I really just wanted to focus on her relationship, and really her thoughts and her feelings and what she went, her personal story. Like, I didn't want, a lot of people sometimes can make a political film, and that was not what I wanted to do. And like, there were other films that I watched. There was like there's a short film called Removed, which I watched a bunch of times, which also deals a lot more with foster care. But I wanted to focus more on like her personal story, and like just what she was thinking and what she was feeling in those moments.
And what struck me as what she might have been thinking and feeling, that was also a very genuine performance, and it reminded me of when kids start to get a little older and in the system for a while. I had young people quoting back to me that they knew exactly how the system benefited from them going from placement type to placement type. They knew how much money was freed up sometimes when their bed was moved from a certain type of facility, stepped down to a less restrictive setting. And when you can have a young person understand what they contribute monetarily to a system, that's a really unfortunate thing, but they're wise beyond their years. And even though you didn't have Kelly say that, her demeanor showed that she understood a lot of what had happened to her.
Yeah.
And that really struck me as a great.
That was something that I talked to both my actresses. So the little girl in the film is played by Emma Silly. I think I'm saying her last name correctly. And then I'm going to mess up Corey's last name. I'm sorry, Corey. But Corey was really great. And she nailed the role. And that was actually something that we talked about a lot, about how, and then that was like, she would ask me a question and then I would try to turn it back on her. And ask her a question like, what do you think she is thinking in this moment? Where do you think you want to go with her? But yeah, that was a conversation that we were trying to have on set constantly, and especially with the little girl in the film, of just trying to make it authentic to bringing it back to the older version of Kelly.
So there was a discussion in this clip about finding a family, finding your birth family. And again, this struck home for me because I am adopted, and I did have the opportunity to find my birth family. So that was a really, clearly life-changing moment for me. And if I trace the film correctly, then Darcy and the aunt, I don't know her character's name, but if I trace the film correctly, correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
that it seemed like Darcy's family adopted the aunt when she was younger.
Yep.
And now that they are older, Darcy has decided to adopt Kelly. So it's generational.
Yeah.
It's Darcy as a boy
Yep.
had an adopted sister and then grew up and decided to adopt a daughter himself. Is there any reason why you decided to make it generational like that?
No, not really. Like, I think it just goes back to Sally's character, and just wanting to give Kelly someone that she can really relate to on a more personal level. And I think, you know, like, Darcy has seen what her sister has gone through, and you know, kind of wants to do the same, and just like provide, you know, a warm, welcoming home for somebody that needs it. But it wasn't, I don't know, I was thinking about it, but not like to a certain extent. I was like, oh, I have to put this in there.
You know, it's so interesting that I know we talked a lot about the aunt's character.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that you weren't necessarily casting for a black woman, but a black woman got the role, because it added a whole different dynamic to the story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's now Darcy's family adopted a young black child, and now like she's able to inform Kelly about that, and I just find it really, really interesting, as you know, just as from a production standpoint, that decision wasn't made beforehand, but it was, you know, sort of made just by who played the role the best.
Yeah.
And it added so much, you know, it
Gives a
added
lot of
so much
layers
to
to
the
the
film.
story.
It did.
Yeah.
I mean, the layers in the story are crazy. You know, do you think when we're talking about Kelly, we're talking about a child who has been from one home to another home to another home to another home, and you know, this discussion is going to be a bit obvious, but I think it's worth discussing, right, especially if there are any children watching who are in the foster care system, you know, now. How do you think, and it's almost impossible to, you know, put yourself in the shoes, because it's, you know, it's such a harsh situation, but, you know, what do you think it does to a child to be moved from one place to another place to another place without having a permanent place to stay? And I'm asking you the question because you work with kids like this. I'm posing this to both of you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, like I said before, I after spending a couple of years and just lots of one-on-one time and workshops where we were helping them understand how to get more of a say, there's some level of being jaded when you've really tried to participate and you feel not listened to. I mean, that's the biggest theme is they've been treated in a way,
That's
broadly speaking, where decisions are being made about them, and the times they've given input, they found that it wasn't listened to. So how many times can you give genuine input about your own well-being and then see that it was disregarded or just asked symbolically? And at a certain point, certain people have different points where they don't want to keep going through that anymore. And you know, through all that, there's those young people that no matter what, they don't lose that sense of hope. And you know, I got to meet lots of young people that didn't get adopted. They aged out of the system, and then they came back as some of the greatest mentors for young people that I've ever met in my whole life. So it's very unfortunate, but it by no means breaks everybody. But you just have to step back and think, how would I react? And you know, one of the biggest misconceptions when I did work in that area was people forget that if you're in foster care, it was through no fault of your own. It was through the actions and decisions of others, as opposed to other systems that you might find yourself in that are a little more related to your own actions. And that's really a stigma, I think, that a lot of young people take most personally, that people that don't understand think that they did something to put themselves in the situation, when it couldn't be farther from the truth, and instead other people cause a situation where they'll naturally have repercussions from living in those types of conditions, especially when it's place to place to place. But through it all, I think there's just an amazing amount of young people that just stay positive and turn into role models.
Yeah. I mean, I've read, again, I'm bringing back to the research I did, but I saw like a lot of that of people going back and wanting to kind of, I guess, give back because they have been through that situation. But I think, I mean, I can really only say from Kelly's point of view with her being in the foster system, is that, I hate using the word broken, but like, she's jaded. Jaded's a better word. So she's jaded a lot. She thinks that she can't find a home, that she's not really wanted, and there's like this feeling of just wanting to be hugged or just wanting to be like loved, and she at the end it finally comes for her, but it took her all the way until she was a teenager, and I think that kind of, one of the foster homes I had her like going back because like, oh, the parents had a baby and then they're like, oh, nope, just kidding, we don't want you anymore. And that was like an actual story that I read, and I was like, how does someone go through an adoption process or start an adoption process and then end up having a biological child? Like, does blood really mean that much to you? And it again comes back to the fact that like I firmly believe in like, friends being family and finding your own family, and that's what she does ultimately. There's so many of my friends that I consider my family, and just because we're just because we aren't blood related doesn't mean that you're not my family.
Yeah, my dad said something really important one time. He just says, family's who you want in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that came across well in what you were trying to do with this story.
Absolutely. I think you brought up aging out of the system, and I think that's a whole other. I mean, we could do a whole other show on just kids who age out, but I think it's worth talking about because Kelly's older.
Yeah.
She's a teenager, so the likelihood, right, is that even though Darcy has accepted her, it's likely that she'll only be like legally under his guardianship for 3-4 years, right before she's an adult, right? She turns 18 and she's legally on her own, and we know just from reality that a lot of kids age out of the system without ever being adopted, and there's a certain degree to which you kind of feel like these are kids who didn't have parents. Who are now, put out on their own. A lot of them get pregnant. A lot of them have issues and don't have the background of being raised by a family on their own. I feel like that's that can be a pretty harsh situation. But I'm glad that Kelly had a chance to come back from that. I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to roll to clip 3 first.
Sure.
I feel like that's a really, really important tie-in to everything that we're saying. So let's roll clip 3 and we'll come right back.
That was a really powerful clip. One moment in particular that I just have to ask you about. As I watched your film, one moment just made me go, wow, that says it all. And this was full of those. But when a young Kelly crosses her fingers, that just sums up every emotion we've talked about tonight without saying a word. Talk to us about that decision and how that particular scene came into play.
So this is actually a really funny story. I did not tell her to do that.
That's
that was
amazing.
that was all Emma. And that was just something, I think we were recording a little bit before that, and she was talking to my friend Ashley, who was driving us around the car. We were driving all around Connecticut for a lot of those shots. And I think my friend Ashley said something or the other, and she just like genuinely like does this. And when I was in the edit bay and I was going back and looking at all this footage, I found her doing this, and I was like, what? I like had a moment, because like you said, it sums up everything that like, and brings the film back home, and you know, of that next moment of is this house the next one? Am I going to finally land my feet in this house? Like,
and oh, please not again.
Yeah,
is what I
exactly.
thought.
Yeah, no,
Please
totally.
not, don't let this happen.
And Emma, I mean, she was really talented with everything that we gave her, and we were just continually talking with her, and like I would literally ask her questions of like, okay, well, what do you think about like your character? Like, how would you, if this was you personally, how would you react to it and stuff like that? And I gave her like actual little actions and be like, all right, I need you. Sometimes, or like I would be like, hey, I need you to be like really angry because you just left. I would also give her a little scenario. So I need you to be angry, or I need you to be sad. Like, I need you to be like devastated. One of my favorite shots, which I think was in there, was with her just like leaning back and just like kind of dead to the world, and I was like, just look tired. She was like, or I think her answer was like, well, that's easy. So but yeah, no, she was really great with that. So
She seems wise beyond her years.
Yeah,
Make those
definitely.
decisions on the fly.
I'm fairly new to film. I have a writing background,
Yeah.
right? So and my interest in film was, you know, just having a different mode and medium to tell a story. But that's definitely one of the things that I've loved about it, that you have the potential to find things like, you know, this clip of her with her hands crossed that was never in the script, you know, wasn't written in, wasn't anything, but just something that was caught on film, you know, unintentionally off the fly, ended up becoming such a powerful part of that. I mean, in writing, you dictate everything,
Right.
you know, that you're going to put down, but just having the opportunity of having this perfect moment, you know, come together that was completely, you know, unintentional, is just wonderful.
I think that's the beauty about being on set and then going into the post room. And I also have a huge passion for editing, and because I feel like that's where you really get to tell the story. Like, you can go on set and it happened to us too. Like, you know, you go on set, it's going to be, you think it's going to be one thing, and for the majority it is, but then you go back in to, once you're done, you go into post, and it just turns out to be like this really beautiful, wonderful story. And then you go in and you find all these like genuine moments of like people do, like Emma, who played Little Kelly, who just, she crosses her fingers, and it's just like incredibly powerful. And I think I was originally going to start that whole flashback scene in the beginning, and then it just was like, the flashbacks were so powerful, and then we needed something to kind of even it out a little bit. So we're like, all right, let's put it in the middle with a little bit of flashbacks, so you get the idea of like, you know, what she's been through and everything, and then really bring it home toward the end. So
The fact that you were able to do that without actually showing the homes, like, I mean, that was really, really great storytelling. You know, I mean, it was clear what she was going through. It was clear what that flashback was about. Yet we didn't see any of the foster homes
Right.
that, you know, that she had been in, but it was clear, you know, from clip to clip, that she's moving around, and we clearly got that. So kudos.
thank you.
To the
Well, I
director
mean,
on
it's
that.
like it's just this constant feeling. I didn't want you to ever feel like you were settling down. So like, all right, before that door closes, or before she looks back away or something like that, I want you to continue moving. All right, like she's in a different outfit. All right, like this other house just gave up on her. So, and that also goes back to the carousel too, of that circle,
Yeah,
like
spinning.
the spinning and the circling of just feeling like you're going around and around and around and around, and it's like this nauseous feeling.
Did you find it actually harder in the end to really boil. I know it's a better effect when every second is in motion. You're able to distill it down. But as a filmmaker, is it harder to go from that 10, 15-minute story to a really powerful 4 to 5 minute story?
It was extremely hard. So she actually met her mom in this because she's at her adoption party, and her mom just shows up, and it was actually like the scene just was not working at all, and the way I wrote it was awkward, and then it was even more awkward. I mean, both actresses are great, and it just was like, all right, I know this is not working, and I kept leaving it in. I was like, what do I do with this? And just like taking it to a good friend of mine and one of my professors, and I'm just like, what do I do with this? This scene's like not working, and they were both like, just cut it out. And I was like, well, is the story still there? And they were like, yeah, like it's a 5-minute little short, but it's still extremely impactful. You tell the story of like acceptance and her like finally coming home in the end. And so,
How many changes have you made to Kelly so far? How many cuts have you gone through?
oh, for this one,
Hmm?
a lot. We shot this actually. Next weekend will be a year ago that we shot, and then I was like really tired and exhausted and a little laid back, and I was like, all right, I know I have so much post work I have to do. And then a friend of a friend who he was doing sound was like, well, you're still not linked, you still haven't connected your video and your audio together. Let me do that for you. And I was like, all right, well, if you want to be my assistant editor, go right ahead. So he did that, and that was great. And then at that point, I could actually really focus on the story. And then I was going through this. At first, I started with going just by the script, and be like, okay, this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And then it's just like, then I had that cut, and then I did another cut, and then I kept, going cut after cut after cut. And it was it's exhausting because you're trying to find out where the best story is, and that is also obvious. And the cut that we actually had for our school does a film festival. Well, they'll have one this year, but not the year after because they're actually going up to a 2-year program. That's beside the point. The music changed, so I used other music, and then I have a very good friend of mine who I love and adore. She has her main actress in her short film is also a composer, and so she offered, my friend Andrea, she offered to help pay. She was like, I think Kelly's great, and you did wonderful work. So her and I, she was like, my actress is also a composer, and it also helps out her too. And she did it. The composer's actually from South Africa, and her name's Elnay Pretorius, and she did a fantastic job. Like, I couldn't have imagined it being any better. Like, she hit it. She really, like, Elnay and I, we talked through email, we talked through an application called Line, and we just constantly were talking back and forth about like what Kelly was thinking, what she was feeling, and then we talked again about like this revolving door and the circular motion, and like I sent her. She saw the original cut with the old music that I had in, and she really like nailed it with the music.
I think I noticed that the cut from YouTube and then the cuts from the clips
Yeah.
had different music.
Yep.
And I noticed that. And the cuts with the different music, it definitely added like more texture. I mean, it added a lot. So kudos to the new composer.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Sacred Heart.
I did mention Sacred Heart.
My best friend from childhood is currently in the program, in their master's program.
Wait, Sacred Heart? In Stamford, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Wait, who is it?
Tim McCluskey. He's in their mass comm program. Big shout out to Tim McCluskey.
Okay.
He'll be calling in this show soon as a guest as well.
Right.
I've heard great
Is
things.
he in the because I think they have the mass communication one, and then is he in the film and television one?
Mm-hmm.
So he worked with. Oh, I love that.
And he's got nothing
They're
but
great
good things
guys.
to say, and he actually had me taking a hard look at it too.
Yeah, it's I mean, I feel very lucky. Like, I'm gonna give a shout out to Sacred Heart University right now, but and the film and television program. like literally one of the best years of my life, other than the few internships that I've done. Like I could have not imagined it to go any more beautiful and wonderful, and like the people that I met are again like family. Like they're people that I trust, and even though I'm on the West Coast now, but it's like you take it to them and you're like, all right, like tell me truthfully and honestly, and like granted it might not be feedback you want to hear, but it's feedback you need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. What is next for Jacqueline, and what is next for Kelly?
So with Kelly, I am currently trying to write the feature. I'm looking, like I've downloaded a bunch of scripts and reading those. So like I downloaded Room.
Okay.
And I'm reading, like, I mean, Room is one of my favorite movies, and I did that one because of the mother-daughter relationship, and Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay, like, are fantastic. And that's one of my favorite movies. So I downloaded Room, and I did a bunch of others, and just reading script after script after script, and then also going back. I think I had, like, 60 pages at once, and then, like, threw it all away, and I was like, oh, we're going to start over again. And just hitting writer's block with that. I'm also currently writing a pilot, which is a historical fiction. But I also go back and forth of, well, do I want to make this a feature, or do I just want to highlight one of the women that were in this program? So I keep going back and forth. Right now, I'm like, I really just want to highlight this one woman because she was amazing. And then for me, I'm currently editing I'm working on a inspirational YouTube series. And the producer is bringing in, he just talked to a woman, a cancer survivor. She's 26, and she's also a tattoo model. So I was just editing that, and then he has a bunch of other ones that he's doing, bringing in some, I think, high affluent people from what I've heard. And then I'm doing that, and then like I'm also just editing a project on the side right now that I'm waiting for voiceover from a friend of mine. So
A lot going on.
yeah, I like to stay busy, otherwise I get really bored.
No, I understand. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask that one key question. You were at Sacred Heart, which is in
Connecticut. Yep.
And you now live in LA.
I do live in LA. Yep.
Do you have to move to LA if you want to break into the film industry?
It depends on what you do. I mean, my ultimate goal is to direct television.
Okay.
So a lot of the scripted TV is there, and I know also, what is it? It's American Crime, I think, is coming back to LA and moving their production to LA, which is also kind of interesting. But I think it just depends on what you want to do, because like New York's very more independent film, and then LA is more TV.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think it depends on what you want to do. I eventually want to direct television and direct a Marvel movie, but that's beside the point.
Hey.
Yeah. But it just depends on what you want to do. So.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap up here, but personally, I just wanted to say, and I'm sure you will as well, thank you for tackling this subject.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
This meant a lot to both of us, and these experiences were one of the main reasons I went back to school, to learn how to help tell stories like this better.
Yeah.
And you just did an amazing job of it, and we just wanted to say thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was incredible, and it's our first pre-produced episode.
Yeah.
So you are our first special guest that was not in studio, but we'll have the opportunity to see yourself on Listen Vision. When we air the show. So we are really excited about this, and again, we want to thank you for coming on.
Want to send me a link so I can post it on all the social media.
You'll get plenty of links.
Yeah. That is
we do
not
good with that.
To be a concern for us. Don't you worry.
Links, tags, pictures, they'll be all over the place. We'll be good.
Great.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for tuning in once again to Shorts in Focus, where we show short films love. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We always love and appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week, next Monday, for our next episode.
Hi, I'm Zeke Dowdy.
And I'm Kayeen Thomas.
And so we're the producers
Of Shorts in Focus.
He's also the host.
I am the host, so you're going to see my face a lot. Shorts in Focus is a show that will be aired on listenvisionlive.com. It's listenvisionlive.com. We will be featuring short film projects.
So we're going to screen it, and then we're going to have a conversation with the filmmakers themselves. The actors, the actresses, producers, directors.
There's no telling who's going to be on the show, but they will always be able to have a discussion about what it is that you just saw.
So whether you have a narrative, documentary, hell, music video, give us a shout at Zeke@shortsinfocus.tv
Or Kayeen at shortsinfocus.tv. And remember, your project has to be short.
every Monday night at 8 p.m. on listenvisionlive.com.
All right, so what you want to do is on Monday nights, 8 o'clock p.m., you want to go to www.listenvisionlive.com. You can do it on your cell phone, or you can do it on your laptop, although we know that you'll be doing it from your cell phone. Once again, you want to go to www.listenvisionlive.com, Mondays at 8 o'clock p.m. Go to the site, hit play. We will be streaming live. So Mondays, 8 o'clock p.m., listenvisionlive.com. Tune in, check us out. We're sure you'll love it.